Welcome back to Switch to Linux. Today we're going to have a look at the new release of Linux Lite, which is 4.8. This was just released last week, last Tuesday, last Wednesday, I think. I forget the exact date of it. And it came right at the heels of the end of Windows 7. And so what they did is they branded this as being a replacement for Windows 7. So I like Linux Lite. I want to steer people towards Linux where available and where it's possible to switch. So I want to go ahead and look at their release notes, and then we will look at the distribution and see, do they meet those claims of being able to replace Windows? So let's go ahead and have a look at their release notes here. So this is the release announcement for Linux 4.8. He says, we would like to take the opportunity to welcome all Windows 7 people who have come over here to find a simple, fast and free alternative to Windows 7, which has reached its end of life and no longer provides security updates. Linux Lite makes the transition to a Linux-based operating system by offering a full Microsoft-compatible Office suite, familiar software like Firefox, Chrome, TeamViewer, VLC, as well as full system backup tools, a comprehensive, easy-to-follow help manual to guide you on your journey, Steam so you can keep playing your Windows games, and so much more familiar software. Our desktop is laid out just like it is in Windows, with a start menu to the left and a tray to the right, with a volume, network, calendar options with a familiar desktop icon that take you exactly where you want to go on your system. So that's what they are saying. And honestly, I like Linux Lite. I think it is definitely one of those Linux distributions that you can jump to from Windows. So it says here, welcome Windows 7 people. We want to provide you with a familiar home. What can you expect from Linux Lite? A desktop, taskbar, and tray that have a familiar layout. Of course, here they're looking at the radical difference in the start menu and kind of the way that it works with Windows 10. And I think a lot of the rest of the stuff in Windows 10 outside of the start menu is quite a bit different. I think is mostly the same in Windows 10. You get a fully featured free Microsoft compatible Office suite in the form of LibreOffice. Now, we are going to want to check if they have done the requirements needed to make sure that this is fully compatible. Some people will say LibreOffice just sucks. It doesn't do anything. About 1% of Office documents may have some incompatibility issues with LibreOffice, but you got to do some things like save your files as docx files, because Microsoft Office does not like the open document formatting, because embrace, extend, extinguish. We also need to check for fonts. The fonts, generally you can install them, but they are probably not able to install them on the system itself. But that's one of the critical things you need to do. It says the option to run familiar software such as Steam, Dropbox, Kodi, OBS Studio, Skype, Spotify, TeamViewer, all within the software application. A welcome screen that guides you through the first boot and setting up Linux Lite. And a hardware database containing 30,000 existing PC configurations that is searchable. Will my hardware run on Linux Lite? You can look here. There's a list of individual hardware. So if you are looking for something else to replace your Windows system with, definitely check this out and have a look at your hardware. That's actually a good thing to have this hardware list here. Okay, they have friendly support forums, and I haven't heard anything either good or bad about their support forums, and that probably means that they're good over there, because, you don't hear like, I went over to get some great help on this such and such forum. You don't hear that quite as much. But when you hear, don't go in that forum, man, they're crazy, yeah, that's when you want to stay away. So I think that their forum is probably going to be very good and very helpful. It says bundled a powerful image editor GIMP that many refer to as the Photoshop competitor, free in Linux Lite. Familiar desktop icons to get you quickly to where you want to go, and so much more. Now, they're talking here about they have this custom Windows wallpaper. I've spotted one of the things that they're commenting here. And then I did go ahead and install. These are the VirtualBox guest editions that you're going to need it if you are installing this to test it on a virtual machine like we are doing here. So let's go ahead and dive on into the operating system itself and see if it will meet what they're saying that it does. All right, so here we are on the desktop. We've just booted in. So when you're boot in the first time, you have this screen here. Now, all the help is over here, the hardware database, forums, help management, online support. But the first thing you do want to do is install updates. So coming in over here, just go ahead and install any of your system updates. Now, people said as I was looking at the other videos indicating the difference between Windows and Linux, some people said, hey, you should have showed how easy it is to install updates. Now, first and foremost, it's not going to download and install updates when I don't want it to. So it's going to tell you there's updates to install depending on your system. I'm not sure if this one gives us a pop-up for that or not, but you should get some type of notification that there's an update, and then go ahead and click the button, and we're installing updates in the background. Now, this just came out a few days ago, so I'm not expecting a lot of updates, but there might be some over there. Let's just go ahead and scroll down. We also have the ability to install drivers. Now, Linux, for the most part, is going to have just as good driver support. Most drivers, most hardware is going to work out of the box, but you might actually have some proprietary drivers. Wireless sometimes provide an issue. NVIDIA graphics cards sometimes provide an issue. So if you go ahead and something's not working quite right, get yourself onto an internet connection, whether hard line into it. You can connect your smartphone to the computer and share your wireless connections, whatever it is, and click on this Install Drivers tool, which may not work when we're in the middle of updates. I'll go ahead and give it a try. Let's see. Yeah, it's done installing updates, by the way. So over here now, I went ahead and installed additional drivers. And so here it's giving us anything that is proprietary. In this case, I went ahead and I installed the guest editions for virtual machine. If I had something like a Broadcom wireless card in here, it would show up in this list, and I could click the option to install the driver and go ahead and install it. Very easy. That's sometimes a complaint. Setting a restore point. So this is just like in Windows, the restore point. This loads an application called Time Shift, which you can also find from inside the menu here, called Time Shift. And this basically behaves like the restore point on Windows, meaning it saves a backup of the last working operating system, but does not store any of your files. You need to save your files separately. Now, somebody did actually request a good video about how to back up your systems and files and all that kind of stuff, particularly if you're using USB drives. So I'm going to do a separate video on that. Installing language support, we don't really need to work on that. You can select the theming out of the box. So we have a light theme, we have a dark theme option. So depending on which theme you want to go with, you can choose your theming accordingly. There you go. You can see now we're on a dark theme there. Then we have keyboard and number lock. This is an issue on some systems. It'll tell you how to fix that. If you want to upgrade, so if you were on a previous version, now we are already on 4.8, but if you want to go ahead and upgrade, you can upgrade anywhere from 4.0, 4.8. You can upgrade up. But if you're on like a 3.8, you cannot upgrade. So if you are on an earlier version, you can go ahead and load this guy up and install. And then there is a variety of tools available. Now, this is a nice option because it gives you just a list of software that is the most common software that you're going to find. Okay, so here we're going to install software. Now, on Windows, you'd have to go online and find all this different software. On Linux, you don't have to do that, which means that you're not going to accidentally grab the wrong software. You're not going to accidentally grab a copy of the software with malware in it. Now, what we're seeing here is not all the software available. These are just the more common software that you might want to use. Spotify, Steam, TeamViewer. We have OBS, Kodi, iDevice Manager if you have iPhones, iPads. We have FileZilla, Dropbox. Is Google Chrome in this list or not? Play on Linux is a wine application, allow you to run some applications. Looks like Google Chrome is not right here. You should be able to install it. Let's just see if it's actually easy, or maybe it's already installed. No, it's not. That's good. I don't really want to see Google in Chrome already installed by default, but I'm okay if it's an option. Let's go ahead and quit that. There's some basic hardware recommendations, nothing else there. Okay, so there we've actually walked through everything in this list. You'll see we kind of walked through all these guys. All right, so the next thing that they said is that it has everything easy to find. So here is this PC, which will take us to the file system. I'm never a big fan. I always like this PC on a Windows computer. I've never liked it on Linux because it drops you to the basic hard disk, which most people don't know how to navigate your basic hard disk. Here we have it's just a disk. I'm not sure why it's showing this up separate. This is actually my same hard disk. And then the CD-ROM is there as well. We also have our, here is our folders here, where we have our downloads, our documents, music, pictures, templates, all those folders there. Now, some file managers will give you all of these in the list. This one, I think, is Thunar, which does not give me, at least not that option right off the side here. See if the tree will do it or not. Yeah, so there you go. So your tree, if you change your view to the tree, it will do that. I prefer this view here. This is the default view, just because here we can very quickly see what everything is. So I'd like to see that option enabled by default because that is closer to the Windows setup these days. But hey, very easy, single toggle to get over to it. We have a control panel here. The control panel here is going to be very similar to the old classic control panel on Windows. We have the basic personal stuff. These are things that apply just to your individual user account. What does our panel look like? Various notifications. How do they look? Where do they show up? So that's kind of where they are. And then we have file manager settings. So this is where if you want to change your displays and things, you can go ahead and do that over here. If you like single clicking or double clicking to activate items, you can toggle it right over here inside the settings. We can change our basic appearance. Here's our icons, variety of icons by default. And then there's hardware. These will generally just interact with all the different hardware, and then system stuff. One of the good things that we find inside of Linux Lite is we have a lot of these. You can see everything here starting with Lite, not Lite DM, but Lite, Lite. These are actually applications that are custom to this system. So if you are to have some issues with boot up, or you need to clear out the cache, or whatever type of stuff, this guy here will allow you to make some adjustments. And that's actually a very good reason to use Linux Lite, is because these are a lot of these things you might need to use a command line for, but it takes care of that. This, of course, is that same software utility that we already looked at here. So if we'll pull this up, you'll see it's the same screen that we already had. Install or remove software. And there are other places to install software from here as well. Let's just go ahead and type in software and install remove software. Here should be a different screen. Yeah. So this is Synaptic Package Manager. This is a little bit more advanced. It has pretty much everything there is. So, if you've ever heard of Evolution, my preferred email list, here's how you install Evolution. Just go ahead and click on your Evolution there and hit apply, and that's going to install that application. Let's see if there's a more user-friendly one than that. There's the Lite software. So it looks like we don't have a more GUI but more general software things like GNOME Software Store or anything like that. Or Discover or whatever it would happen to be. So we're kind of stuck with Synaptic or the Lite software for the most common things. Not a huge deal on that. Here's Session and Startup. This is what it's going to look like. Here's the application start list. So anything that is going to be selected here is automatically going to start up on startup. You'll see like Bluetooth is disabled. That's because this computer does not have Bluetooth. I'm pretty sure if I did have it, then this would be enabled. And then there's just a variety of other things. So you can go ahead and make any changes there that you need to. You can launch GNOME or KDE services on startup if you want to. So that's what is inside of there. All right, now let's go ahead and have a look at some of their other options. So as far as LibreOffice, we do not have the full suite of LibreOffice on here, it looks like. We just have the spreadsheets, presentation, and documents, which, that's what most people need. But if you were to install the full LibreOffice, if you need databasing or things like that, then you'll actually have the ability to install those as well. Most of your distros targeting towards Windows users will generally only have these three because that's really the ones that are most commonly used. Now, they did say a full feature. I'm going to take a little bit of issue with this, and here is why. What they could have done if they wanted to make this more comfortable for a user switching over is if they went ahead and installed the more recent version of LibreOffice. So this is the one that is available in the Ubuntu 18.04 repository, which is 6.0. On 18.04, though, if you use the PPAs from LibreOffice Foundation themselves, you can actually install the latest version of 6.3 on the system. And then what you could do is with 6.2 or greater, aka 6.3, come into View, and under your toolbar layouts, you can actually pick the tabbed view that people are more familiar with. I personally like this one better, but I completely understand there's people who want to use the tabbed systems. And if you really wanted to say this is the perfect thing for a Windows user to switch over, they should have taken that extra step, installed 6.3, and set up the default to have the tabbed menu set up instead of this one here. Also, what I'm noticing is, no, they didn't do anything different with the fonts. I didn't actually expect that holy crap, they did. I'm totally shocked. This actually might break the copyrights of Microsoft, though. But yes, they do. I'm shocked. They have Arial. They have Calibri. Wow. I stand corrected. Ouch. Look at that. They even gave us Comic Sans, people. So yes, they actually did come in here and install the most common fonts. Your fonts is the first problem that you have with compatibility. Because if I sit here and type in Liberation Serif, with this font and send this document, the Microsoft computer goes, derp, I don't know what to do with this font. And so it does whatever it picks out as a random default font for when your font's not there. And that is why fonts oftentimes break. So if what you do is you change this to something that you're going to find on a Windows system like Calibri, this font works with MS Office. And if I were now sending this document out, we already have the same font that the Microsoft computer has, and so it's going to work. Now, of course, if I go ahead and save this, it's probably going to default to save it as, let's go ahead and save it to the desktop, just have a look at it. It is giving us a .odt file, which the ODT file is going to yell at some people there on Microsoft. So if we really did want to make this the most compatible, what they should have done is come down here into your options down here and find like your writer. And then what we want to do is we want to come down and set up our defaults. Change your defaults over here to use something that a Windows computer is going to have by default. So come on down here and just set Calibri as all these guys, and then everything is going to work there. And then you also might want to save your default file type as a docx. And that setting is in here somewhere, and I cannot remember exactly where that setting is. But somewhere in here you can change your default format. You guys are probably all yelling at me now. It's right over there. It's right on the screen. You don't see it, you noob. Hear that all the time. That's okay. So anyway, let's just go ahead and click OK. And if we were to now hit a save as, we can now choose the docx as a format type. If you were to save under a docx format type and you can set the system to default to the docx. Now you're going to save a so yes, we are going, okay, no, don't ask me that. I just want to save as that. So now you have a docx file with the Calibri font. This one here, unless you're doing something totally weird out there, is going to work with pretty much everybody using Microsoft Office. So yeah, I would have done a few things differently. Now, they also wanted to talk about the default layout. There's a few other things that they could have done inside of this. So one of the things that they could have done is done a better job at, they could have done a better job at laying out your panel. Because if you guys noticed when I was coming down to the desktop, I shot my mouse down over here to the corner and I accidentally clicked the clock. That's because on every Windows system, starting with, I think, Vista, if you go to down to the bottom of the screen and click, it shows the desktop. Okay, it minimizes all windows. The minimize all windows button is over here by the menu now. And so what we will want to then do is we'd also want to go ahead and move this guy. Now, these guys are kind of locked in place right now. So we'll go ahead and move that. And I'm going to move this one to over here. I'm going to move this one to over here. And move my clock over here. Oh, hold on. I got a volume too. I got to move my volume over here somewhere. Dude, volume. Move the volume. I'd prefer to move it here. Well, we'll just move it there for now. All right. There. Now we have it set up just like Windows. Throw your mouse to the bottom corner. Let me go ahead and illustrate. Let's just go ahead and open up a bunch of stuff. Throw the mouse to the bottom corner. Click. Now we're set up like Windows. So what I see here is, yes, Linux Lite is an excellent option if you're coming over to the system from Windows. But they have not taken a few extra steps to make it as comfortable as possible. Those little tiny details. Upgrade LibreOffice to the more recent version. Set the default layout to be the tabbed browser manual. Set the default fonts to the fonts that they already have installed, which I have no idea how they have those installed, to be perfectly honest. But they do. And set the default to save as docx. You're going to have the maximum compatibility. Do the little things like set your panel up over here. And, you know, they did make a little bit to say all your icons are familiar. These are not Windows familiar icons. They could have gotten Windows familiar icons and put them in. Those are extraordinarily minor criticisms, by the way. I'm just pointing them out because they said, hey, this is the greatest application for it. As far as other things for you Linuxy type guys, we're running 4.15 kernel. Let's see if HTOP is installed. It is. So we're, even after playing around with the whole system for a while, we're still only running at 672 megabytes. So that's totally awesome. It is running great. This will take a Windows 7 and restore it back, and then you are going to have good use out of it. Overall, I really like Linux Lite. It is good. It does have a lot of features, a lot of settings. The software is nice. The choices that they've made is actually very good. It's streamlined, it's clean, it's easy. It does actually, the only other criticism I'll say is it does actually have a more dated look to it. This is why I like pointing people to Linux Mint Cinnamon first. It has a lot of the modern elements that people are used to, and has that Linux feel, the Linux flexibility, and will still work under the majority of the hardware that was designed for Windows 7 to begin with, having much lower system requirements than Windows 7 itself. That's why I like that one. If the computer is a little bit older, then you definitely go for something with this, like Linux Lite or Peppermint or MX. But ultimately, this is good. I think that they have accomplished their goal. They have accomplished their, what they're trying to do. And with that being said, then I think that it does do a good job. Definitely use this. But at the same token, I think that some of their marketing, some of the way that they build themselves is a little bit more like, hey, Windows 7's dead, use this system, it's set up the same perfect way. It's not perfect. It can be made a little bit better. Ultimately, it is very good though. So with that being said, thanks for coming along. Let me know your thoughts about this distribution in the comments down below.